So the owner of this knife has not had the chance to use it yet. It does have a very, very sick grind, but he hasn't had it very long. And let's see how it works for him. Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared. My lovely wife Kara's taking a nap. And today we are checking out this Nova Blades Javelin. So Andrew Tool is the one that sent me this knife, which is Art of EDC-23 on Instagram. I will link his information below. Let's get into this knife. So we might cut up a few things here in a little bit. He did tell me I could use these knives, which is absolutely amazing. He hasn't even had an opportunity to use this. He just told me to make sure they show back up sharp, which I will absolutely do. This one, I don't think probably not going to use this one enough. I'm just going to cut a few things just to really, see how the grind works. It does have a beautiful edge on it, and I don't want to be the first person to sharpen it for him. I mean, if he wanted me to, I would. I'm just saying that I don't think I'll, cause enough damage to it to need a full sharpening. But let's get into this piece. So this is the Nova Blades Javelin. This is CPM 154. Micarta handles. Beautiful micarta. Titanium liners, and the colors just go beautiful together. The back spacer is micarta. You can see it's kind of got a unique shape to it. We will look more into this as we go through the review. When I get to that tip there, it starts getting a little thick, but through this belly, so CPM 154 is a great steel for knife makers to use. One, it's a powdered version of 154 CM. Two, it's easy to polish, easy to work with, holds a great edge retention, and I find that it's a lot more superior to, or I'm going to say a lot, but it's more superior to 154 CM. Now the thing is that in my opinion, now this is just my opinion, I find that it polishes almost too quick, because when I have it on my stones, when I do polish it, it polishes so much that it polishes the teeth out. So I personally think, yes, it looks beautiful with a polished edge, but it doesn't perform as good with a polished edge. It seems like when you kick it back just a notch and drop the grit a little bit, it'll still be very shiny, yet hold that bite that you want to cut into stuff, rather than it being slick, because you'll polish it so much that it'll be very slick when it comes to like biting into materials. Is it sharp? Very sharp. It's sharp in a sense that it'll bite into materials because the edge is so fine, but not because the teeth of the edge is biting in, which I prefer the teeth of the edge. Now, in return, an edge that's too polished and too fine can also be very brittle, because it's just like kind of like, I don't know how to explain this. It's kind of like the edge is just a wire and there's no teeth to bite into anything like a saw blade would be. It's more just like a wire. So it's more fragile, rather than it being not as fine and a little bit more of aggressive, so it can use the teeth to cut through materials rather than the wire of the edge. I don't know if that makes sense to you. It kind of makes sense in my head. It might not in yours. Either way, CPM 154 is an incredible steel, and it's a great steel for custom makers to use, and it works really good. It's a great steel, and it performs really good. It's easy to sharpen, and it maintains a great edge. And it's very stain resistant. It's all the great things about a good steel, like where you're getting the best of all the worlds of a good steel. You're getting good stain resistant, good edge retention, easy to sharpen, and good strength. Rather than giving one up completely and saying, oh, I don't want no stain resistant, I want all strength, if you know what I mean. It gives you the good qualities of everything. Let's talk about the size really quick. It's 7.5 inches with a smidgen over 3-inch blade. It's basically a 3-inch blade. Let's do some quick size comparisons. This is a knife that most people know, the Sebenza. You can see it's a bit shorter than the Sebenza. Then let's do some knives that I think most people do know still. This is the Para 3 lightweight, very, very close. The Javelin is a tiny bit longer, not by much though. Here's the Benchmade Mini Griptilian. You can see it's smaller, obviously. And then the Benchmade 940. You can see it in between them. Okay, I think you understand the size. It's a medium-sized knife, but you can get a full grip on the handle because it's nice and thick and contoured all around. This is a polished OD green micarta. So it's nice and smooth. Gives you a really, really good ergos. Fantastic grip, even for a knife of this size. Now, if you hold back here, at least in my hands, the ramp sits perfectly. And then if I do take advantage of this spot right there, I can still use it like that. But I can also use it just like this, where I sit right over the top. And then this little spot right here from my hand doesn't bother me at all. It kind of just nestles right there. So if I was going to, do any close work with the blade, and then to use the tip, I personally, would either just turn my wrist up and use it, or get up a closer grip like this and use it like that. The tip's actually fairly easy to get to. It's got kind of a spear point kind of thing going because of the belly. Now this belly is super thin. Let me see if I can even get it on camera. It's very difficult because it is micro thin. I will measure it here in just a second and let you know how thin it is in this belly. I can tell you right now it's very, very thin. You see how it kind of goes from thicker right here, then it gets thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner to the thinnest point right here, and then it goes back up to thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker till it gets to a pretty thick tip. Not too thick to use, but just a nice, good, strong tip. You can see the grind, how the grind changes. That's a very good indicator of the thickness of the edge, is just by the grind, because they usually use the same angle across the edge. So, very nice. The sharpening choil is done perfectly. Perfectly. Very nice sharpening choil. You can see all the swedges and the grinds. And then if I really get up really close, I can touch the, well, I'm not touch, but I can get right up to the tip like that if I want to. Now, it does have caged bearings, so it does run on ceramic caged bearings, which is very smooth. You got plenty of room and leverage to these thumb studs. Bang. You can do a middle finger flick very easily. And it almost feels like it's on phosphor bronze washers more than ceramic bearings. So the drop on it, it's still very, very smooth, frictionless. You don't even feel the bearings rolling at all, you can place your thumb right on top of that thumb stud and pull it around. Sometimes detents are a little too strong and they tend to pop like that when you try to pull it out for the slow roll. This one you can follow it around very easily. The action is good. But it does have a little bit of a lighter detent, not in a bad way, but just, you know, it's not as strong as some detents. But all you gotta do is just kind of build the pressure up just a little bit, and you can easily get a lot of force coming out of your flicks. So now I'm going to tell you the table price, but don't let it scare you, because these tend to go much cheaper on the secondary market. So at a table price, this is about $1,100, but the secondary market does seem to run a bit cheaper on these, at least for right now. That could change in a month or a year. It's just how things go, because these knives are incredibly well built. And yeah, very awesome. And to get this sick of a grind, I mean, that's some work right there. And you can see it is a satin finish. And then you can see the flats are going the other direction. Let me see if I can, let me get a thing real quick. Sorry, I just wanted to wipe the blade really quick. I like to keep these nice and clean. These knives are not cheap. So you can see the difference in the direction of the one satin versus the flat of the other. Very, very nice. Now, using this thing, you know, I'm going to make a couple cuts just to show you guys how this grind goes. But, you know, it's a knife that, even though he told me I could use, I am definitely very delicate with the knife. Even though he did not tell me to be delicate, he told me to use it as it was mine. But there are a couple other knives, though, that I'm going to probably use a little bit harder than I'm going to use this one. Maybe not specifically on camera, but just to do the testing on it. This thing's insane. This thing's about 6 thousandths behind the edge right here in the belly. It is very, very thin. So this is about 27 thousandths up here. And then this was right under 20 thousandths back here. So it really just shows the taper of that grind and the difference between here and like the dramatic change from here to here is substantial. It's a lot. And then the dramatic change from here to here is even more. And then just like the taper back up to the thick tip. So now this knife would be great for somebody who really likes to use their belly, you know, who likes big bellied knives and doesn't mind using the belly of their knife to slice. Like even something like that. I didn't put any pressure just now. I'm trying to be careful because I don't want to go through this and then through my rubber mat. I know this thing right here is over 1 inch thick, so I don't think it'll, you know, hurt it by any means, but it's just the point. Like you barely touch this thing and it's ripping through stuff. So it's very easy to not put barely any pressure and for it to cut. Like right there, that was just the weight of the blade. The weight of the blade couldn't do it, but if I had a pound, it's starting to break through. Let me do a little bit of a different side. I don't want to hit that dirt. Okay, so once it breaks, it just continuously goes. So that's the thing, is that once it breaks through, so like if I just sit here and go like this and go back and forth, I'm not putting any pressure, eventually it's going to see it bit right there. So eventually it's just going to bite through and then continuously pull. So you put any pressure on this belly, it's cutting through. Then the tip, very easy to get to. You can still use the tip. Very nice. And you can use this flat part right here to pull across if you want to, or for like push cuts. So like right there, you can easily, that was so easy to do. I know these packages aren't hard to cut, but it was very easy. Then like if you're just going to use the belly, obviously the belly's just going to go through like nothing. Back here, you got this good flat for push cuts. If you want to do push cuts, you can easily do push cuts. This is just a regular piece of cardboard, UPS. Right here for the push cut, you can see, so like the ergos, I'll lift you up a little bit more. Okay, so you have such good ergos on this that it's very easy to do a good push cut, and it bites very fast. Now the problem is going to be is if you allow it to get back down in here in this area. So what I would do personally for the push cuts is just go right over the top like that, and then what I'm going to basically do is keep it lined up with my finger so it never gets stuck down in there. Then I never have to worry about that happening. It'll always fall directly onto my finger, if anything, if you see what I mean. So, like the belly right here, you can easily do your little push cuts. Hold on, you can't see my arms. You see, I'm basically going like this across something. So, like if I need to bite into something, I could easily just push right through. Easily push right through. The push cuts right here. Oh, I got a little bindage right there. Wow, surprisingly. Let's do it back here. Easily to push through. And I'm just letting it run against my finger. But then the belly cuts for slicing, it's so easy through that area. Even though, and then this is the thing, look at how thick this blade stock is. This is a thick boy blade stock. Now, it does have some taper. So straight above this area right here, it does have that drop off, which is going to help when going through materials. So right here is going to be the hardest portion to cut with. Even using this part right here, it goes up and over. So even though this part right here is small, it's also coupled by a thinner part of the blade. Back here is going to be the thicker part, so you're going to have more trouble doing push cuts with it. But then right here, like I said, it lines up with the, where basically the material goes like this, up and around the blade. I don't know if that made any sense. So like if something's cutting through in between my hands, it goes up and around the blade. When you get a thick flat portion like back here, it basically just peels it, and then you got to deal with the force of the material getting clamped in between whatever you're cutting. So just like any knife. Okay, so the blade geometry is fantastic, although it is thick. The blade stock, I mean. It's thick right here, so this is going to be the hardest portion to get in between, and you want to make sure you guide it with your finger. For EDC use, this thing would be incredible because like opening packages and stuff, you know, we've already displayed that. Even on tape, it's just so easy to cut. Ooh, it went right through. Doggone it. You got to be careful with it though, because you have a chance of opening stuff up and just going right into it. It's very, very thin. So, and then once it goes, it just keeps going because it's so thin in this area. So it's something you want to use, you know, like for the right things when you're cutting. If you're cutting open a package, you know, make sure you don't go too deep, or, you know, use maybe it's at an angle to where it can only support a little tiny part of the edge, you know, kind of like you're using like a razor blade. Now, Steve Dumpkus is the one who is the person that makes the blades, or is the owner of Nova Blades. So he's the one who does all these by hand. Steve Dumpkus, which this one is called the Javelin S. I forget what the S stands for. I know he does frame locks and stuff like that. So all the things I like about it. So I love the grind, obviously. I love the grind. I love the ergos. I love the micarta. I love the build quality. I like the stop pin. The stop pin's a good size. The lockup, nice and strong. The clip, I did carry it a little bit. The clip works great. It's not the deepest in the pocket, but you can see how it kind of tapers down. So it actually nestles up higher than you would think. It's actually like this deep. So it's not bad. Now, the liner is very easy to get to, even though they don't give you like a ton of room. It's still super easy to get to. So no complaints about the action or anything like that. So the bad stuff. if I was going to have to come up with some bad, and I was really pressed to come up with some bad because there's really no bad here. If I was really pressed to, I would say the lockup is a little early. It's not early enough to fail or anything like that, although I'm not like, trying to muscle it. But from what I can see, it's locked up like a rock. But I prefer the lock bar to be directly underneath the lockup, and I like early lockup. So, but that's a little bit too early for my preference, but it seems like a knife that in return will last forever because it's slowly going over. But I think he did send it in because it was a little early for him, and then I think it was earlier than it is now, and he sent it in and they put it to this point. So, but other than that, I really can't come up with any bad. I mean, it's got all T8 hardware. The thumb studs work great. The action's great. I could say this, that maybe the action could be a little like more drop. Not like drop shelly like that, because you see it's very smooth. But like right here when I unlock it, it doesn't drop. I have to kind of swing it. But that's me like looking for stupid things because that's not a problem. The jimping could be maybe a tiny bit sharper. That's another thing. The jimping works though. It's just it's not the sharpest. And there's this little mark right here behind the clip. I've tried messing. Every time I see it for some reason, I try to grab it, and then I remind myself I've already done that 100 times because it's, I don't know. I think it's just a part that wasn't polished. So, but it's so, you can't even really see it barely. It's just there. On camera, it shows up better than in person. But yeah, there's really no bad here. So there you guys go. Great knife, amazing knife, and I'm guessing that their secondary market prices are going to start going up. Peace. Thanks, Andrew.